Good afternoon. Welcome to Spirit Cafe Show. I'm Barbara Jean.
I'm Cheryl Rogers.
And I'm Marg Dupuis.
And we are so happy to be here. And I'm going to start with our land acknowledgement. So just join with me. We are standing on the original land that is now known as Toronto, and we stand with reverence, committed to the sharing of this land. We acknowledge the genocide committed here, and we choose to courageously move along a new path, creating reconciliation. This land was stolen from the Anishinaabe. European settlers also stole their culture, their language, their spirituality, and even their children. So today, Toronto is covered under Treaty Number 13 and the Williams Treaties. It is the traditional territory of many First Peoples, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. And still today, the First People are struggling to be seen and heard. Colonization has created a system of destruction to our First People and to people forcibly brought here through the transatlantic slave trade and slavery. Toronto was built on stolen land with stolen labor of Black, Indigenous, and racialized people. In our desire for reconciliation, we honor the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Treaty and agree to peaceably share and care for this land and her people. We're committed to the active dismantling of the colonial system, and we are committed to the dismantling of all forms of racism. I invite you to just take a moment to acknowledge your personal commitment to the land that you are on and the path you choose to walk forward. Miigwech.
Miigwech. And it is my honor and privilege to introduce our guest today, Reverend Dr. Martha Creek, who likes to go by Precious. So we're going to call her Precious or Martha, and she's dearly precious. And we are just so blessed to have you, not for the first time, not for the last time, but for today. And we're grateful. Welcome, Martha.
Thank you, Cheryl. Barbara Jean, Marg. It's wonderful to be with you again. I look forward to these. I'm honored to be asked to join in your Spirit Cafe and to be here today and to bring forward any inquiry or questions you don't want to answer again. These questions that kind of pry open some of our precious, sealed away, put away, regressed, denied parts of ourselves, and to see what's possible. So it's a high privilege for me to serve in this way and to serve with y'all, which is a fulfillment of my own calling, which is to serve those who serve. Mm-hmm. And I devote this time to that. And I know I learned something from it. No exceptions. Every time two or more are gathered like this, there is great insights, new understandings, and infinite possibility that is most often more than glimmered. Mm-hmm. That there's a potential that is unlocked, that is expanded here.
And that's so true. Unlocked, expanded, didn't even know they were there. And that's talking from experience. Yes. So we were in a gathering together just by coincidence on Monday, Martha, Barbara, and myself. And they were sharing experiences that Barbara went through recently, and Martha shared she could relate, and she had some also unexpected experiences in the same country. And so we thought, well, let's have that conversation. Martha said it's a good conversation for a show one day, and we so happen to be having her on the show today, so why not? The gifts of the unexpected.
Well, I was so inspired. Barbara Jean, do you want to start, honey? Because I don't want to share your experience, but if you want to speak about your own direct experience, I'll absolutely share how I was moved by it and what I related to and what Cheryl's referencing.
Awesome. Thank you. When I went to Kenya, because I went to Kenya for the CSL conference, and I ended up missing the conference altogether because I was diagnosed with bacterial pneumonia.
And this was recent, right?
This was recent. I just got back a couple of weeks ago. So when I went, I had these great plans to fly over the savannah in a hot air balloon while the animals are waking up in the morning, you know, going to the conference and meeting all the people at CSL Kenya, and just a bunch of things that had been planned, and best laid plans, right? But here's what's great is I ended up going to the hospital 4 days after arriving by ambulance, and was diagnosed with pneumonia and given a bag full of drugs to take and then sent back to the hotel. But here's the unexpected blessing. I had the remarkable pleasure of getting to know the staff at the hotel and also our drivers. And they took such good care of me. The woman who was at the front desk gave me her cell phone number so that I could WhatsApp her and she could let me know, or, you know, check on me. I could ask for anything I needed. There was no phones in the room, and I couldn't walk to the front desk because I couldn't breathe. So it was a case of her very generously saying, just WhatsApp me. And that girl is still WhatsApping me now, saying, hey, how you doing? And, you know, it was great meeting you, and that sort of thing. The drivers as well, the woman who did my room, I got to know about their families, got to spend time with them, you know, saw pictures of family. So I got to know the people that would normally serve us rather than the people I was traveling with. And I just felt so blessed, because even in the hospital, the staff there were hilarious. The one doctor, when he saw my last name, he goes, I can't say that. And so he says, I'm going to call you, I can't remember exactly, something like Wanjuko. That's your Swahili name. And I went, okay, call me whatever you want. And he was just laughing and carrying on. So the whole experience I had was profoundly beautiful. And there was never a moment when I regretted it, resented it, you know, why me? None of that. I really felt blessed all the way around. So great experience, unexpected.
And, you know, one of my teachers, thank you, Barbara Jean, it's wonderful to relive it again, particularly imagining that I was in some of the same places, likely some of the same lodging and some of the same plans for safari and all of that. And one of my teachers, Byron Katie, says it as this, like, no, it didn't turn out like I expected. It was perfect instead.
Exactly. That's how I would call it.
But it's one thing to say that. It's another thing to experience it.
It's true.
It's not a bypass. It's not a spiritual bypassing of, oh, it was wonderful. It was wonderful. It was wonderful. Oh, it was filled with blessings. To say that or offer it up like a platitude, but to say the truth is, it turned out sweeter and better than if it had turned out the way exactly like I'd had it planned. And including in this case, a serious illness, a trip to the hospital and medicine, and missing a conference, not just not just an inconvenience or a hangnail or something like that. As we're talking like this was absolutely taken down. So
yeah, it was, I was very sick, like even walking from my bed to the bathroom, which is, you know, a couple of feet, like I would be trying to catch my breath. So yeah, it was, but what I found really cool, because I think the reason everybody around me was so supportive is because I was so happy. And I'm having a good time, and they're worried about me, but you know, they're joining in and having a good time as well. And I think that for me, like I phoned a bunch of people here because I knew that when people were hearing, my husband posted on Facebook that I had pneumonia and I was in Kenya. So everybody gets all worried. So I was phoning people that I knew well, that I knew would be going, oh no, going, I'm fine. I'm really fine. I'm getting so well cared for. I'm being just treated like royalty here. And so as I was phoning people, they could hear in my voice that I was perfectly fine. Mm-hmm. Yes, but not under the weather at all. I was having the time of my life. So it's beautiful.
Well, you know, I just want to say quickly, you start off by saying, I went to Kenya and the good thing that happened was I got pneumonia. And I'm thinking, how many people would say that, right? And then to share your experience and to go through the experience with that energy, with that attitude, that is for me just an example of living the work that we do, that we talk about, that we teach, that we learn about. All that leads to the possibility of being able to do that.
It's also very different than saying it was so good. It was so good, I got sick, versus this is her direct experience.
Yeah.
Not a spiritual bypassing of this or a painting over, taking something that was painful or sad or a deep loss and trying to paint it purple.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like I thought. And I actually missed some having time with my colleagues or the people I thought I'd be connecting with or whatever. That was present too. And I deeply appreciated and delighted, in fact, even while sick, getting to know local people and receive the generosity of their nature, that they were absolutely there to go overboard. And that was my direct experience too. So I was at the first ever CSL Kenya conference 3 years ago in the similar place. And I was excited to go, honored to be asked. It was my birthday. So I had a congregation in tow with me to go and really live it up there. And we were in these airports in Amsterdam and Paris, wherever our travel took us, and everybody in the airport was wearing a mask and on these airplanes. And I don't watch news. And I was thinking, what in the world is going on? Everybody here's traipsing around with these masks on. Well, now fast forward, we know now it was a COVID outbreak, an international COVID outbreak. And I never heard of it, didn't know there's any such thing. But I got sicker when I was there than I've ever been, except once in my life where I actually had a ruptured appendix, sepsis, gangrene, peritonitis, and was in a coma. So I was as could be there and could not sit up. I could get from the bed to the bathroom, which was a short distance, as you said, Barbara, and I had to wait longer in the bathroom than I wanted to muster up the energy to get back to the bed. And not one single thing that had ever worked was working. I was willing myself well, affirming myself well, praying, meditating, drinking water by the gallons, releasing, putting it in a burning bowl, standing on my head, color therapy, vision therapy, Feldenkrais. And then they involved everybody they know. So people would knock at the door and say, hi, I'm a doctor so-and-so, somebody that has got word about you has sent me over here. So doctors were coming, nurses were coming, people were coming from a pharmacy daily with these things to take this, try this. People I'd not ever met once, people I don't know, that absolutely, like us, are wired to care for other human beings and wired to help another human being. And admittingly, not everybody has this wiring yet, because right over here on the other side of us, somebody would be in there stealing, raping, robbing, pillaging, taking something from somebody else. And the wiring that's in place in the majority are to care, to extend heart, to extend compassion. And I still hadn't heard about COVID, didn't know what was going on, but knew that this was not something I would want to pass on to anybody else under any circumstances. And we were transporting from one lodge to another one where this conference was going to be. And I hired a driver to take me over there and ask them to keep all the windows down. So this was all intuitive. Yeah. This was not because I knew anything, but it's like, if this is something contagious, what would ease it? I would not ever want another human being to be this sick. Mm-hmm. And got myself into the next place. And the same thing there, people trying to get me to eat and get me to drink. And I would just stay in the bed, nap, and run energy the way I knew to do it, and wake up and somebody else had dropped off food, and they'd come and get the food that dropped off the last meal and replace it with new food for this meal. So that went on for days. And I said when it came time to present, I was one of the keynote presenters, that if I could sit up for, this was days into it by now, and that if I could sit up for 30 minutes, I would know that that's a sign that I can actually present. And I was able to do it. And I was able to walk to the next building, presented, and sweat. It was pouring off of me like in buckets. I was drenched, all the clothing, not just the underclothes, but all the clothes were drenched. And something took over, came through me, and I was able to present. And then I was well enough that I actually did the safari piece, but I asked to ride. It was in Jeeps also. And I asked to ride up front, so I wouldn't be sitting near somebody. I'd be as away from them as I could.
Yeah.
All of that intuitive too. But many, many blessings, and including the woman that drove me over there that stayed in touch with me too. And I told her on the very last day, which was right at my birthday, we went in late in January, and then they said that they had been missing pizza, and what would Martha want if she could eat something and really enjoy it? It was pizza. And you want to know that there at that last hotel, that last conference center hotel we stayed, somebody drove up on a motorcycle with something like one of those franchise Domino's pizzas or something like that to give this to Martha for her birthday. Give this to Martha for her birthday. So,
wow.
The people of Kenya have so little and are so generous and so kind and so joyful. I think that was the part that got to me, is seeing the level of poverty. But then everywhere I went, the people were smiling, and they just gave and gave and gave and gave. It was so beautiful it was just beautiful. And it made me think, we have so much and we gripe and complain and bitch all the time.
Yep. So do we really have that much? You know, what do we value, right? And how's that working for us?
It's not working.
Well, it's the basis of Mother Teresa's teachings, you know, like you think we're in poverty. And it's like, you don't know what poverty is, and you're the ones that are actually in poverty. So in this country, India, she was referring to that we have a banana and we'll divide it. We'll share one banana with 2 or 3 people. Mm-hmm. She set a nation off of potatoes by asking children, young children, grade school level children, to figure out how to feed people. And they cut their potato in half to give half of it over. And you are with stalks of bananas, and it doesn't occur to you to offer one to somebody else.
Wow.
There's the poverty. There is the actual poverty.
That's the poverty. Exactly right. Exactly right.
I think
I have to speak to something that I'm witnessing right now. And that was from Barbara and from Martha. One of the lines that I've heard you say, Martha, when we've exchanged in workshops, etc. And I'm going to paraphrase because I can't say it exactly. And you'll go something and, oh yeah, tell your face. You know, you say you're happy, you say you're whatever. Oh yeah, well, tell your face. What I'm witnessing here, Martha, in you and in Barbara, you are a very passionate woman. You say you care about other people, and that your heart is there. Your face is expressing your heart, your truth. And you too, Barbara, you said you were happy, joyful, whatever, appreciative of your experience. And I'm sure there was times that both of you, with the COVID and the pneumonia, there was like, oh crap, this is happening to me. And you were able to see the gifts that were given to you. And Barbara, I could see it, the joy in your face. So thank you for sharing the joy and your passion, Martha. So I just had to bring that forward, what I was witnessing in the two of you.
Thank Mark. Now. That's wonderful to be witnessed in it. And what I generally mean was my own addressing of how many years, decades even, that I went around with, how are you, Martha? Fine, 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 fine. And I mean, a mother standing, and then we're going to teach that if we're not careful.
Yeah.
You know, it's all good. It's all good. And like, it's the last thing a mother that is watching her father or a grandmother or a sister or an aunt that's watching a baby being buried in the ground does not need to hear. It's all good.
No, they
It's
don't.
absolute. It may be all good. We're here. We'll find out eventually, apparently. But in the meantime, back here at the ranch, no hurting heart needs to hear it's all good.
Yeah. I had an experience a week ago that was very, very traumatic. I was driving my daughter and her girlfriend. Her girlfriend had come to visit, so I was driving her home, and she lives downtown, so it's about a half-hour drive or thereabouts. And when I went off of the one highway onto the off ramp to get to the next locale, a cyclist was hit by the car in front of me. So that car moved into oncoming traffic. The body of this woman flew, almost looked like she had come out of the car, but she flew and landed directly in front of my car, which I was able to quickly turn the wheel and miss her, but the car behind me hit her. I parked my car, got out and checked her. She was unconscious at first, but gained consciousness and was in life-threatening condition when they took her away. And it took, I haven't checked with Genevieve's friend, but my daughter and I, it took us some time to just to breathe. It was such a traumatic thing to see somebody flying through the air and landing in front of your vehicle. And I did a meditation with a friend of mine a couple of days later. I think it was maybe on the Tuesday or Wednesday. And she was able to take me through a Buddhist meditation that helped me to come to terms with the trauma that I was feeling. And what has been the hardest part of this is we can't get any information about her. So she may have died, highly likely. And maybe she's healing. We don't know. So that was the hardest part for Genevieve and I. But I look at everything that's happening between the pneumonia in Kenya, then coming back in that car accident. And then last Saturday, I accidentally fell into Lake Ontario when it was minus 10 degrees. So I just keep laughing, going, I don't know. Life is throwing me all kinds of these little curveballs, and all of them, like falling in the lake. That was pretty funny. Once I got in the car and turned the heat on and my coat thawed out and my dress thawed out, I was able to laugh. But the car accident, the cyclist that was hit, that one is a different story. But I do acknowledge that I was there for her. And my daughter and I did treatment together. We prayed together. And, I prayed for all the EMS and everybody who's there and for her best care. And, but yeah, life throws us curveballs, but we're always at choice about how we experience them. And I think it's so important that we experience it. Like when that girl got hit by the car, it's like, I can't push that away. What I was feeling, and what my daughter was feeling. And so we just kind of hung on to each other, process through it. But I think, you mentioned the idea of spiritual bypass. And I think that's something that often happens in our teaching, because it's like, oh, I have to think a positive thought. Absolutely not. We have to be in the experience we're in. and to honor whatever it looks like or feels like or whatever, and but have the experience. And for me, the having pneumonia, I was so well treated. It was like just, it was a great experience. The car accident, very, very different. But again, we met some remarkable people that we wouldn't have met otherwise.
Well,
So,
and that's a part of staying open-minded enough to say, one of the early New Thought teachers, somebody I have to look it up to know, because I don't remember, but in the books that I read, but it moved me when I read it. And her general approach to things like this, oh, Mary Baker Eddy, like something like that, or Florence Scovel Shinn would say, I demand to see the blessing in this. I demand to see the blessing in this. So it's like, at least it leaves us open-minded enough to say, as traumatic as this is, as shocked as my nervous system is, I'm going to be as present as I can for the living. In this case, she was living, that she had some awareness that somebody was there with her. She wasn't alone, and that it's a call emergency. And then if she's dead, if she had have died there, that there's people there that are traumatized by witnessing this and seeing the death of a body, maybe their first time to see the death in the body, and to be there to minister to them. So it's like, if to the degree that we can hold presence and not abandon these parts of ourselves, that we can then go tend to that part that was shocked and traumatized and sometimes even short-circuited. I got news one time when I was a young girl, 14 years old girl, that my Aunt Martha had died, and she was my namesake. So she was like, she's who my mother had a baby and went right back to work as quick as she could, because she had to keep us going and feed us. And my cousin just walked up. I was off to play softball, and, you know, I'm the big star and all of that. And he said, oh, are you here? I didn't think you'd be here since Aunt Martha died. Just like, you know, what's for lunch?
oh
And
my gosh.
I actually fainted.
Yeah.
Like I literally fell to the ground. So this is a way that our nervous systems can absolutely shut down. So then you wouldn't say, well, where's the gift in that? And it's, well, the gift in that is that the ground was there to catch me. You know, I fell on the ground, and somebody was there when I woke up to care for me and to, you know, to see what I needed to get myself situated again. It also demonstrates a heartstring that I had with my Aunt Martha.
Absolutely.
For her, like what the symbiotic relationship that I had with her, that is also, you know, how they say the depth of the grief is the depth of the love. So that's at least a minimum of that, you know, to say, I may not can see the gifts right away, but it doesn't mean that the gifts aren't here. When I'm able to reflect and contemplate and get a little space for breathing and get my head above water again to catch my breath, was your words, I think, Barbara. When I can breathe again, then I'll be able to see what was the blessing in this. And without trying to stuff the feelings or disown and suppress and deny the feelings that I had about it.
Yeah, it's so important to be with what is.
Welcome back. Martha, before we went into break, we were talking about how, you know, different things, good experiences, not so good experiences, how some we experience positively, some traumatically. And you mentioned how the need to tend to parts of ourselves. And having just done a 3-day retreat, which I would not call a retreat, but some do, with you, I would say that's intensive, deep work. I was wondering if you would like to speak a little bit to how they connect to the deeper parts of ourselves from past experiences, and you know, that the work is important to recognize and acknowledge.
I think so, Cheryl. You may do a better job of it, honey, speaking from your own experience. So I can speak from a direct experience as well as the theory of this is that, and this is tried and true and tested, IFS, internal family systems therapy, that is also founded and grounded from a Dr. Richard Schwartz, who did external family systems or family systems work for years, and now 40 years, and looking at this, what he did with his clients as he heard them talk about the parts of me. So a part of me was sad. A part of me was disappointed. That terminology in itself has changed my experience.
Me
So
too.
I can speak about I'm sad, I'm upset, I'm confused, I'm irritated. And to say a part of me is irritated, a part of me is sad, has shifted everything for me. And it's more actual. That's what's true. It's not all of me that's sad. I can still hold presence. I can still do my job. In most cases, I'm still functional. And the part of me that's sad is bringing me an unexpected gift.
Mm-hmm.
But a sad part of me that's not been tended to, acknowledged, cared for, nurtured, healed, reconciled, aligned, atoned, whatever you want to call it, is waiting for us to come back to it. And it's running the show in many ways, and most often unconsciously. So this chronic, permeating, unaddressed sadness that goes back often to a time or two when we didn't get to meet ourselves in that sadness. And that in listening with people, you hear that it's very similar to what Barbara just put forth, but in children, children experiencing dead bodies. Children, a woman, for example, said that she was just playing and having fun, and she was on a crutch, and her crutch fell, and she fell on this little friend of hers who had some kind of serious physical disorder, and that little kid died the next day. And it's like, then the family, and she akined it to being Irish. Part of the Irish culture is you don't cry, don't show emotion. And many of us have roots in that. So even if we're not direct descendants of that, that is back there in our descendants, which is be stoic, suck it up, carry on. Nobody can bear your crying, dry it up. We stay strong. And and now somebody this week said to her, you have such a sad life. And she was infuriated by that. Offended, like, how dare you? How dare you? There's nothing about me sad. Look at me. Look how joyous I am. Look how happy I am. She knew enough and knows enough from working with me to know that if we got touched like that, that was her word, it touched a part. I'm like, well, it triggered a part, psychologically speaking, that she knew that she had some deep work to do there. So then she was able to go back and look at what happened to her as a little kid, and what naturally a little kid would do to shut that down. Not only the deep loss, but believing she caused it. That was her fault, that she had actually killed somebody else. And then a family that was giving very clear, direct, strong messages of don't speak it, don't say it, don't cry it, don't have emotions, don't have feelings about it, do it this way, go in your room, get yourself together, come back out here. And how much that's still in our systems too. And as much as I'm devoted to not handing that down to the next generations, if I don't circuit break that patterning, and I don't stay conscious and can't stay conscious enough to do it, I'll pass it down without even being aware that I'm passing it down. And I could hear some of my own ancestors saying, get yourself together. Get yourself together. Get a hold of yourself. Get a hold of yourself.
Don't be a baby.
I heard myself just this morning in a session ask about what are some of the messages from those strong kind of stoic parts of me, and it was snap out of it. Now, right over here on my altar is a little ceramic doll somebody gave me because I said it so much, and it was cute back then when I was trying to be clever with just snap out of it, just snap out of it. But that's also the way I was treating myself and treating the parts of me to get them to, quote, snap out of it. So these are the ways that I've mistreated the parts of myself, honey. And it's like I get to go back now and make amends to those parts and to say, I'm sorry and forgive me. And I'm here now, and I'll do what I can to make this right for the rest of my life. And talk about unexpected gifts when we actually get to integrate those aspects of ourselves, those parts of ourselves.
Absolutely. And I love when you're sharing that we see what you're feeling. You know, we see tears welling up in your eyes, or you know, that moment of really anchoring it. I think that is so important too, because so many of us have taught to suck it up. Don't show your emotions. Don't be too happy. Don't be too sad. Um, I remember even when Genevieve was in school not so long ago, probably grade 4 or 5, a teacher taking her aside saying, "Don't cry, you'll upset the other kids." So I went to the school and went, "You don't get to tell my child that ever. Like, she gets to cry if she wants to. And if you want to invite her to, you know, come with you and go sit in the office, that's okay, but don't tell her she can't cry." And I think that's messaging that's damaged a lot of men, but we get it as well as women. You know, don't get angry because that's aggressive, right? Like, there's all these weird standards. So
Don't break down. I cried. Oh, I broke down and cried. Well,
yeah.
no.
Somehow crying is a weakness.
Well, and even terms like one of the women on the group that Cheryl's talking about kept saying, "I lost my blank. I lost it. I lost it." And it's like, that's how we've learned to speak about having any emotion, regardless of what it is.
I'll cry if I want to. Thanks, Julia.
Go for it. As far as I'm concerned, if we ain't crying, we ain't listening. So
I agree.
Good for you.
That's beautiful.
So these parts are varied, and they range from little exiled parts of ourselves that were left behind, suppressed, disowned, denied that they're there, because we had to disassociate. We had to do something to cope and to navigate the winds that we were in, and in a place where what we were feeling or experiencing didn't have a place. It was not welcome. It couldn't be met with some understanding or some compassion. And we can do that now. We're that. So, you know, the Course in Miracles speaks about, it's not a question if you'll do this work. It's just a matter of when. I want to be, I don't know, proactive about it. Like I feel like it's my way of making up restoration for the harm that I've been party to, that denied, suppressed, depressed, disowned, spiritually bypassed, pretended, faked it, so many things. And to see even the innocence in that, not to judge that and make that wrong, but to see that that's the only way that I was able, the only way I was capable of being with that at the time. And it's not true today. I have different resources and inner resources, and as well as a sincere devotion to integrate instead of disintegrate.
Absolutely. One of the things that came up for me that I realized is how certain behaviors that I have always felt were okay are actually in response to something, a part of me that I didn't even realize was there.
Yeah.
And so recognizing that, hang on a sec, maybe that behavior is not okay. Right? So it's these habits that we form in our way of thinking and our behavior that seem to us as our normal, and then recognizing that really it's a response to the conditioning that's deeper in us.
Yeah, which is often a trauma response, honey. Yeah. A response that's founded in some initial trauma.
Right.
I'm just thinking of the TED Talk that our spirit group saw today, and the woman was a certain shade of black. She talks about shadeism. I had never heard of that before. And I'm not going to talk about her talk, which was amazing, but she said something that was I think marrying with this show, what default preference do you fall into? And it sounds like that's what we're talking. What default do I think about? Like what is my response based on my upbringing, what I brought myself up to thinking? Where do I go with it and respond from that place?
Mm-hmm.
And we're responding primarily unconsciously based on our patterning or based on what we've been taught. And that we then are not even aware of our biases. We're not aware that we are holding an attitude about something, or that we just treated somebody the way we did, or something because of our already drawn conclusions. So in the beginning, there was the conclusions. That means that all of that is still waiting to be questioned. And
our BS, right?
What was
our BS?
Yes.
BS.
Yes.
Belief systems, which
absolutely,
which we think, which we strongly believe at the time.
And we're not even aware of what we're believing.
Yeah.
We actually don't know what we believe without taking time for contemplation to think about this and to see, what do I actually believe about this, and what do I think about it versus what I claim to think about it, or what I want other people to think that I think about it, which is very different than what I actually think with this personas that we're trying to keep up, and looking at how eventually we can't, they won't hold anymore. And there's so many things about these unexpected gifts. I just, including this, what you're referring to, Marg, here, that I just watched a movie, and in the newsletter, if people want that, they can just go over to marthacreek.com and sign up. It's free, and it's got resources of movies that I've watched that changed my life. And one of them this month that I put in this the March 1 newsletter coming out is a movie called Passing. And it is a movie that takes a nuanced look at two women's navigations of race in a society of demands. And part of the nature of it is, one was white enough, she was a shade white enough that she could pass as white. And it distinctly into looking at the risk that she took and the tremendous sacrifice that she took to get what she thought she wanted, and to find out it wasn't what she actually wanted, and that she couldn't deny what was in her bones and blood, basically. Wow. So the unexpected gift of trying it, testing it. I've got to test to see, is this what I really want? Or is this what I think I want based on what societal standards have set up, when it was absolutely an abandonment of my truer self, which had rather have had what being black got me than what pretending to be white got me. And anybody with a conscience can understand why you could believe that being white would be easier.
Absolutely.
But anytime we pretend, of course, we're denying our authentic self, which ultimately is going to hurt us down the road. We will feel the result of that.
Yes, which is living in then a chronic abandonment of ourselves, a chronic state of self-denial and rejection, of worried about them rejecting us. I also just listened to Steve Jobs' commencement address at Stanford, and there's so much in it as an unexpected gift. So he was given up for adoption at birth, for example. Do you want to talk about unexpected gifts? Here's somebody given up for adoption. And yes, he saw it as a gift. These people actually loved me, wanted me. And his mother, in handing him over for adoption, made whoever adopted him swear they would make sure he went to college. And he did not want to go to college. He could not bear college. And then he said he couldn't bear these people that had loved him and cared for him throughout his life was going to take every penny of money they had amassed in those 20 years. It was going to cost every penny of it to get him through this college. And he simply couldn't bear it. And then some of the things he did, so eventually he couldn't do it. So he just started studying for fun, basically. And he took a class on calligraphy. It made no sense whatsoever, but he was noticing this calligraphy around the campus. And then calligraphy ended up being one of the highlights of what he was designing for Apple and some of these operating systems, which is why we have all the font choices that we do today. So he's like, you can thank me for that. That's an unexpected gift of Steve Jobs taking a calligraphy class that made no sense to anybody, including me, way back when. Then he got fired from the company he founded that he started. He got put out by his own people, his own board, publicly, unexpected gifts. And it hurt like a booger, according to him. And then he said, if it hadn't have happened, he went right down the road and started up Nexstar, which he eventually sold to Apple for a large amount of money. And it's still the core of the renaissance of Apple till today. And then he started Pixar and 2 other companies, all of which would not have existed if he hadn't have been fired from Apple.
Wow.
And did it feel good? No.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's a great example. Like, wow, that's huge. Those are no small feats that took place once he, first of all, from starting Apple and not going to college or university, and then being fired and doing what he did afterwards is just so inspiring.
And he said in this speech, he had been diagnosed by this time, and they told him that it's curable. And that he said in the speech, so I'm going to be fine. Then just in a few months, he was dead.
Wow.
This is Barbara, that you said it about what life dishes out or life, offers up or whatever. And I've got to be careful, even hearing things like that not to hear that life's a punishing life or God's a punishing God or there's something after us or it's dishing us up or it's a jokester, it's trying to get us in its snares or whatever, versus no, life is doing what life promises life will do. That is inhale and exhale. It is drought and flood. It is you are alive and then you're not alive. And then you're married and now you're not. And now you're employed and now you're not. And now you're healthy and now you got a disease or a diagnosis. This is the assurances of life. And it's our responses to them, our reactions and responses to them that will define our experience of them, our basic teaching.
So
go ahead, Cheryl.
We only have a few minutes left, and Julia has asked, do things happen for a reason? And I'm thinking that could be a whole nother talk. In a couple of sentences.
We'll all have a different answer, Julia, I think, to this because of our own convictions and that. And, I could say in my life, the things that have happened to me, just like I demonstrated from Steve Jobs' example, when I'm in it, I can't see the reason. I can't make any sense of it. It's very disturbing, even traumatic about what could be happening. But once that's been integrated or processed through, or I gain a little breathing space or get my head above water, I can often see this had validation. There was a reason here, and it's what it took to get me to take certain action, or it's what it took for my awakening or something like that. But I don't walk around saying everything for a reason because I don't know sometimes what the reason is. And honestly, I don't know, is there a reason or not?
Mm-hmm.
So I generally avoid inquiry like that, because if I'm not careful, it's hi-ho, off to hell I go, trying to figure out what cannot be figured out or trying to make sense out of things that I can't make sense out of.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Martha.
It's off the hell I go. You have such a great way with the turn of phrase.
Somebody gave me a mug that's got that on it. And my little morality police named, my little young one, y'all know her name, age 8, went, Marmar, who got you a cup with this profanity on it? Don't they know?
She's the language police.
She's the profanity police.
Oh, she's so sweet. But I just want to say, Julia, that's a great, great question. And really something, you know, that, like Martha said, different people will come with different answers too. And it would be a good discussion for the future. So thank you for that.
Yeah, you could do a whole show around that one.
Right. Right.
Well, we've only got about 3.5 minutes left. Martha, what is one thing you'd like to say to our people watching that they could take away from this one little nugget?
You actually are precious, and your parts are precious. And don't believe me. Find out how true that is for yourself.
Beautiful. I love that. Mark, what about you?
A nugget I'll take away is just to breathe into the moment. And if I don't see the gift right now, tomorrow I might be able to see it.
Beautiful. Cheryl?
Yeah, beautiful. I liked what Martha had shared, that she read it somewhere a long time ago. I demand to see the gift in this. And so for me, that's something that would be good to remember in all circumstances, because sometimes I really, I go down the road of not feeling or seeing any gift in what I'm experiencing. So that's a good nugget for me to keep in my pocket.
I think that's a good nugget for all of us to remember, that somehow whatever's going on is moving me, whether it's away from something towards something, but that when we come into life, we know who we are. And I think everything that happens is trying to remind us of that, so we can remember who we are, so we can start living that beautiful, authentic life that we've all been gifted with. So, oh, what a joy this has been. Martha, thank you. You are so wise and so wonderful. And hi ho, it's off to hell I go.
Not if I can catch it. Yep. It's like, oh, the allure. Oh, the allure.
Yeah.
Love your humor too.
Absolutely. So important. In the seriousness of it all, humor is so important.
It is.
Thank you all for being here, for making this possible, for your work, for all of you listening. Find your own holy moments and know that there's a lot of resource for you here. So any way in the world you can be given an uplift for your life, find it. And when you find it, stay close to it.
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
Well, thank you all for being here. Thank you for watching the show. Martha, you are a gift. Cheryl and Mark, love working with both of you.
Love you, Barbara.
Thank you. And we'll see you all next time. And be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Bye for now.
MarthaCreek.com if I can support you. Blessings.